full support for Inoko Dongwana's budget. Of course, there's been extensive lobbying, but will it get the support that it needs? The DA, some of their members, if you see what they're posting on X, very much indicating that if they're not happy with what the minister is going to deliver, they will reject it. Yesterday, in an interview with Business Day, Minister in the Presidency, Khumbudzo Ntshavheni, said they would be given an opportunity to look at the budget later this morning. And she says if there are still disagreements, the minister must be allowed to table the budget, but those disagreements can be dealt with after today. We know that the budget, of course, is not voted on today. So the minister is only tabling the budget today. So he's presenting it to Parliament, and then it will head to the committees where the different departments are then going to debate and then have to approve the budget proposals. So even if today goes ahead smoothly, there is still going to be pushback if at the heart of the issue there hasn't been consensus among the coalition partners. And I guess that word has never been more important than it is now, because in the absence of consensus, as a country, we're thrown into political and economic instability. It is a crucial moment for the country, and one wonders if the grown-ups have been able to get in the room and been able to work it out. So today, absolutely a very, very important day, not only for the government in terms of how it's running its affairs, but also for us as South Africans who have so many questions, who want clarity on what exactly the plan is, to not only fund some of government's programs, but also how we are going to be affected. So I'll take your calls on the open line. It's your National Roundtable. You, of course, are more than welcome to raise whatever matter of national importance you want to put on the table. The number to dial 086 000 2032. That's 086 000 2032. On the WhatsApp voice note line 0614 104 107. That number again, 0614 104 107. Coming up on the show today, for Citizens Corner, we will then also stay with the conversation around the budget speech, because it is such a critical moment, right? And we'll be looking at whether or not this is a moment that is going to result in progress, or is it going to be a signal of paralysis for the government and its ability to actually get things done? So we'll unpack that in the second hour of the show. And then the final hour, we'll look into the debacle around the SASSA Gold cards, and that switch over to the Postbank black cards. And we'll find out exactly where we are right now. That deadline is fast looming. Recipients, SASSA grant recipients have until the end of March to make the switch. There have been serious systemic issues with it, administrative issues with the process. And the signal, again, from the government has been there will be no more extensions of the deadline. But if the system is still not working to fully accommodate those that need to do the switch, how realistic is a position like that? So we'll be in conversation with the CEO of the Postbank, who will really give us a sense of where things are with that process, but also why was it such an administrative failure that's what it is, right? You heard what the minister had to say before Parliament. The social development minister had to say before Parliament on it. Even she couldn't contain herself in criticizing what she had seen at some of the Bank branches, and just how people were not getting the kind of help and support that they needed. So we'll then look into that issue. And then, for the last sort of 10, 15 minutes of the show, we're going to be introducing a new segment. Of course, this year is a big year for South Africa, hosting the G20. We're not always able to cover everything that is happening on a day-to-day with the G20, but what we are going to do is bring you a weekly wrap of the important developments around conversations that are being held by the G20 and what it is that you as the listener must be looking out for. So what is being discussed and how does it ultimately affect us? So we're going to be following that event with Lerato Tsebe. She's no stranger to SFM. You've heard her voice on this platform quite a number of times. She's an independent African researcher, brilliant at what she does. So she'll be bringing us then the G20 wrap every week as we build up towards the summit that we'll be hosting later on this year. So that's what you can expect over the next 3 hours. You're invited to be part of the conversation. It is, after all, your open line. 086 000 2032 is the number to dial. On the WhatsApp voice note line, 0614 104 107.
Jazz lovers, the wait is over. Africa's grandest gathering returns on the 25th to the 26th of April at the Cape Town International Convention Center. Experience 2 nights of soul-stirring jazz, electrifying collaborations, and over 30 world-class artists across 4 iconic stages. Don't miss this unforgettable musical experience. Get your tickets now at ticketmaster.co.za. Brought to you by Independent Media, proud media partner of the Cape Town International Jazz Festival.
In Lagos, a deal unravels. Johannesburg pivots. The world's a chessboard. Players wear tailored suits. You've watched. Fluent in ambition, but untrained in power's language. Henley's International MBA, Africa's sole international MBA qualification. Ranked, respected. We teach statecraft, not spreadsheets. The boardroom is no spectator sport. Regret, it's as sharp as blade. Apply now for April and July. Make your move.
Something big is coming. 6:30 will never be the same. Amalanga Wafani, only on SABC 1. After what transpired in Loftus last month, the boys of Coach Rivero believe this is the perfect time for revenge against Masandawana. But the highly confident Brazilians want to double the Buccaneers' pain. As Mnyamanginkani versus Kabuyelo. This is a massive meeting of giants, the Betway Premiership. Witness Mzansi's beautiful game, Orlando Pirates versus Mamelodi Sundowns on Sunday, 16 March at 2:30 p.m. live on SABC 1 and at 3:30 p.m. on SABC radio stations. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, Clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
Call us on 086 000 2032.
All right, this morning I'm going to start off in Matatiele, Wonga. A very good morning to you.
Good morning, Cathy, and then good morning to SFM listeners.
Look, earlier on this week, we of course received a call from it's Job, Job, who called us from Matatiele and told us about the arrest of the mayor. by all indications, that has now been confirmed because the mayor is facing a charge of fraud, Wonga. And you've been complaining on this platform about the state of affairs in your municipality, and you've really been trying to hold them accountable there. Of course, I'll also add that you are a DA councillor, so it's part of your mandate, but you've been very vocal about the things that are going wrong in that municipality.
Yes, Cathy, I've been very, very, very vocal, and it's a sad situation that we have to come to this particular part of this life, part of this. We should be, all of us, in fact, in South Africa, protect each and everything that needs to be protected. We should be saving, today or tomorrow, in fact, today, we are almost about to be given a 2% VAT hike because of whatever is going loose, whatever monies are being missed in the mist somewhere. we shouldn't be in this situation in the country. We shouldn't be in this situation because there are some serious cases that needs to be investigated. But you look at how this thing started, even in council, putting in motion agent matters for the Municipal Public Accounts Committee to investigate. That it didn't happen because I wanted to follow all the internal processes of the municipality even before going or coming where the situation is. It's not a good feeling. The gentleman has a family. The gentleman has life. Also, people of Matatila need those rights to be protected. But this is the situation, this is what has happened, and we are here. And no one is happy about anything. No one is enjoying this. You cannot enjoy when someone's life will be determined in the court of law. But also, you have to be hands-on as an opposition to say, guys, please, let's look after the municipal monies. Let's look after what can help us in terms of the rates for the people of Matatia.
Wonga, this is something that you had raised from as early as it had happened a number of years ago. Are you surprised that now the police have acted on it? Because you are the one that opened this fraud case against him, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, Cathy. As I've said, I've started the matter in council in 2022 on the 21st of May as an agent matter, then escalated to all the things until in 2023 in July the 6th, then I went to SAPS to open a case with the information that I was having, of which I was 300% that what is not taking place within the system of the municipality, I must go and then test it in a neutral venue, whereby I said, if as Wonga I am lying, then the council need to charge me because I would have put them into disrepute or put the name of the municipality, the name of the mayor, and other people and all that. So, but at the end of the day, it happened. So, yes, I did open the case. It came down to what it is today.
I think that this is such a great example, Wonga, of accountability, right? And what it means to hold our public officials accountable and asking questions where we are not satisfied with what we are being told.
That is true, Cathy. And you know what also other people must understand, it's not personal. It's just taking what you have been sown in to look after in terms of who are those constituencies who have voted for you to be a councillor there. Let me put it right out. I'm not an enemy to the mayor, Mr. Usonabila Mgenela. He is not the enemy to me. Yes, we are talking. Yes, we will talk. We work in the same council. Even though the boundaries of me opening the case, him being charged, in terms of the police will say the communication between you, it has to end where it's supposed to end. It has to be only in council work related, but on the street, inside or outside, then don't interfere each other because it might jeopardize whatever the case may be. In fact, that's what I've just been told by the police this morning when I went to see them.
Okay. Wonga, I'm sure you're going to keep us updated. Wonga there calling in from Matatiele, and here, of course, it's an example of what happens when people raise alarm. In many ways, he's a whistleblower, right? And today, the mayor has been arrested. The ANC says that its step-aside rule will now apply to him. He appeared in court yesterday. Yeah, and it's a story that we've been following for a number of years. The mayor is actually accused of using council funds to attend the ANC's conference. And these were allegations he had long denied. But as you can tell now, if the police are investigating the matter to the point where prosecutors have charged him, it means that he does have a case to answer. All right, it's 9:30. I'm going to take the latest headlines. I'm back with more of your calls.
Good morning. In the headlines, a Pietermaritzburg-based advocacy group is against the increase of value-added tax, VAT, as this will put a further strain on the poor and economically marginalized. The Pietermaritzburg for Economic Rights and Dignity says it will rather see a further increase of the social relief grants and old age grants, as this will bring relief to households in a stagnant economy. The Ekurhuleni Metro Council has resolved to establish an ad hoc committee to investigate allegations of misconduct, corruption and fraud within the council speaker's office. And the Southern African Development Community, SADC, will hold an extraordinary virtual summit of heads of state and government on Thursday. I'll have details on these and other stories at 10.
Dr. Mohlahlana, you are a genius, man.
Dr. Mohlahlana speaking. How can I soothe your heart today?
Hey, Doc. My Bezo says I'm not romantic enough, and with Valentine's Day coming up, I want to brush up on my romantic talk.
Ah, Uncle Mo, I've got you covered. Or better yet, I'll have you improve on your game and have you all set.
Oh, Doc, what are you saying now?
Grab a tennis racket, a bottle of water, and some fresh green fluffy tennis balls, malume.
Tennis racket, tennis balls. How is that supposed to help?
In the arena, Serena Williams will have you saying 15 love, 30 love, 40 love. It's love everywhere, malume. Catch In the Arena. Serena Williams, Sundays at 7 p.m. Starts 9 February, only on S3.
The citizens are not willing to settle for anything less than a win.
And now it's with Haaland and on to Foden. Foden to finish the game. And he does.
However, the Seagulls want to triple their efforts to collect valuable points against reigning champs.
Lovely touch for Mitoma, and Mitoma could be away. Here it is. Mitoma one-on-one. Mitoma, delightful.
This is the Premier League. Witness the superb contest, Manchester City FC versus Brighton and Hove Albion FC, on Saturday 15 March at 4:30 p.m. Live on S3. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga.
This is the time, this is the now where we need a reawakening of Black consciousness.
100%. And what we've also identified is that from an institutional perspective, there's a shift that's currently happening, and we are also privileged to be able to play our part in fostering this kind of work to become a priority. We have collaborated with institutions such as UNISA, we've got the UJ Arts and Culture, the Center for the Less Good Idea, UNISA Art Gallery, and UKZN Press.
Ludwe Kwazi Ndlazi, who is the co-owner of Lit
culture.
The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga. Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m. Call us on 086 000 2032.
Cathy, good morning. I'm Tagata in Ofimva, Transkei. Cathy, I am in support of this added 2% that is proposed so that our revenue can be strengthened. We know, Cathy, that there are people who are getting this SASA grant, the SRDs. Those people, I'm aware that they can benefit. I didn't see no one who was saying that the country is going to burn when the ESCOM was raising tariffs. Instead of collecting money from the Izinyoka, ESCOM is victimizing the people who are obeying the ESCOM, who are buying electricity. Thanks, Cathy.
Good morning, Cathy and your team. This is Flores, the prodigal son from the Western Cape. Cathy, who in their right mind would like to leave South Africa? Living in South Africa is an extreme sport, man. You're always living on the edge. You never know what has happened when you woke up in the morning. And yeah, we're still sitting with a budget. We don't know if it's going to be delivered. Man, this is some cliffhanger. Yeah, that word starts with an S. Have a good show. Bye-bye.
Hi, Cathy. This is Kian. You know, this budget, Cathy, is going to affect us one way or another. And it's going to affect us very harshly. And then just because of what? The past, for 30 years, in the news, we're just hearing how people were actually abusing the state's funds. We were listening about the maladministration of the state's funds, the mismanagement of the state funds, you know, the corruption, the cartels, everything around the government officials. Now today, they are scratching their head, what is going to be? The answer is the chickens have come home to roost. Thank you very much.
Good morning, Cathy and the SAFM listeners. Cathy, the Tsobotla municipality, back to the drawing board. Again, we've got 2 mayors, 2 municipal managers, 2 speakers. Could Minister Hlabisa please come here and sort these things in this municipality? Potholes, Apollo lights are not working, corruption is high. Anonymous.
Call us on 086 000 2032.
Thanks for those WhatsApp voice notes. Anonymous in Ditsobotla, I think that what has happened with Matatiele and the mayor there is really a lesson for residents who live in other municipalities where there are high rates of corruption. Wonga is just an ordinary member of the society, and he didn't stop with the complaints. He actually exercised his agency in the matter. And I think there are lessons to be learned there around the power of standing up and doing something where we see wrongdoing. And as he was saying, it's not personal, but the fact is there were serious questions that the mayor needed to answer. Council wasn't able to hold him accountable, but after 2 years, the police have now arrested him, and he now has a case to answer to in the court of law. Ultimately, transparency is going to win here. So that I think is the lesson for areas such as Ditsobotla as well, because we've been having the same conversation for years. We've been having the same conversation, and it's frustrating for you as residents, but it's also frustrating for us because we don't go anywhere when it comes to, we don't get anywhere when it comes to getting answers, at least satisfactory answers. But if people who are living in municipalities are not standing up and demanding that accountability, unfortunately the cycle continues. Papillon, you're in El Dorado Park. Good morning.
Good day, Sister Cathy. Greetings to you, and I hope that everything keeps well. You know, Sister, I'd like to start just for a second with the topic you spoke of now, if not mistaken, as Councillor Owanga or whatever. I request him, please, to watch his back. As known, South Africa is an anarchy state today. Anyway, you recall, Sister, the story of Meneer Kali Krel before they went to the States. He stated last year there's a letter which they wrote to Mr. Ramaphosa. And he stated that they wanted a meeting, a conference, just to have a talk with him concerning the ongoings which were brought into Parliament and they've been legalized now by Mr. Ramaphosa. From last year, as Mr. Krel says, what did Mr. Ramaphosa do? He went to the toilet and he flushed that letter down. So what did AfriForum do? They went to the States because they were invited there by Mr. Trump and they discussed everything. Suddenly, what is the response of Mr. Ramaphosa? Oh no, it's a South African story. We're supposed to debate that story in South Africa. Yet he does not say. He did not respond to the letter which the people wrote to him. Like you, Cathy, you have two dogs. In the morning, you feed the one dog, and in the afternoon. But the other dog, you do not even give it water. So is it not something the other dog will do to go out of your yard, to go next door, to look for food over there? And as the dog is next door, the neighbor loves the dog because he sees the dog is most in need and he takes the dog. All of a sudden, you turn around, you say, no, it's my dog. How can you do that there and whatever? You're fighting over spilled water. So is it not something written on Mr. Ramaphosa's face of what a failure he is?
Look, Papillon, I don't necessarily know if the engagement between AfriForum and the president would have prevented AfriForum from doing what they're doing. Remember, this is not a project they've started with today. They've been at it since 2018, 2017. If you go on their website and you see some of the press releases that they were issuing then, it's indicative of how long the lobbying has been going on for. So yes, by all means, the president should be engaging people who are wanting to raise particular concerns with him. Even if it's not him personally, he's got officials that should be listening to what people have to say about their experiences in this country. But I don't know that it would have made a difference because AfriForum has long been at this campaign. And nothing was done about it then, by the way, Papillon. Yes, there was outrage, there was anger over it, but it was allowed to continue. And this is now the fruit of a process that has been on the go for about 8 years.
Yes, that's a case go. Because the way I see it, you know what I mean? It's just my prediction. He made Hawks up to open up a case against them so that, they think, we're going to fool them and then they come back with the tails between their whatever. And yet, they said properly, they're not afraid. We can go to court. But anyway, so just a lesson I'd like to bring up. Another thing which, can I say, it aggravates me to such extent, I cannot even describe it, is the story of the Khoisan. You remember they also wrote to Mr. Prince, Prince, who was the president, to Mr. Trump of the States, whereby they stated, no, they would like to be in a meeting to discuss it there alongside AfriForum in the States in front of Donald Trump. Now, my story is, they already spoke over here to say, no, they're concerning the apartheid story and it's our land and blah, 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 blah. So then it's not rather obvious that that letter which the Khoisan wrote and forwarded to the States, what did Mr. Trump do? He went to the toilet and he flushed that same letter down as much as Ramaphosa did of the other one.
Yeah, look, Papillon, I'm not aware of the letter that was written by representatives or members that or organizations representing the Khoisan community. I really am truly not aware of that letter. But let me move on. Let me go to Maluleke in Limpopo. Good morning.
Good morning, Cathy.
Yes, good morning, Maluleke.
Good morning, how are you?
Good, go for it.
Hey, I have, this thing of bullying at school. Last we heard there was a boy who was killed because of a fight at school. And yesterday, there's a daughter, my last-born daughter, who's
Maluleke,
13 years. Yes.
I'm going to ask you just to try and project your voice a little bit. I'm struggling to hear you, so just speak a bit louder for me.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, that's much better.
Yes, there's my last-born daughter. She's been going to a new school because she's doing grade 8, and she's been bullied and when we tell the teachers, they say no, we'll deal with this thing. Né? But they started by telling her that she wears torn shoes, and when she was talking to the girls there or the boys at the school, they tell her okay, I went to school and tell them that they were mocking about her old school shoes and stuff. Okay, the teachers, they said they'll talk to them. Last week they said because she's a girl but she plays soccer. Then she made it to the first team. And they said, how?
Oh, Maluleka, I'm not sure what happened to you. We've lost you on the line, but we will try to get you back up again so that we can hear about your story, and in particular looking at bullying at schools. Let me go to Nyaniso in Worcester. Good morning. Good morning, Nyaniso.
Cathy, how are you? To you and your listeners.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much, Cathy, for taking my call. As I'm sitting here in my veranda here, I'm watching the sun here, but my tail up between my legs, and I'm eating my nails now, worrying, Cathy, that I wonder the minister what he's going to say today. Really, because when I'm listening now to your listeners for the whole week and radio stations, they are talking about that minister might take away this SRD grant and might also increase the VAT. Even though we ventilated, we came up with a proposal that the ministers must also consider to review these ministerial handbooks and deputy ministers and the other things. But what's now dominating is the things that is going to affect the poor of the poor. This thing is worrying me. It is only one man that is dominating up until 2 o'clock. My question is why? Why is always like that? The things that are affecting the poor, that are the things that our leaders, they prioritize. Why is always like that? This grant is only 370. You can only get the cabbage, a lump of cabbage, and only 5 kg and 500 fish oil. That is lasting only 1 week. If you can take this last thing that is also assisting the poor of the poor, so which interest really the government will be interested in if they can take these things? But why our leaders, they don't consider the things that are affecting themselves than they really for us the poor? Is the minister listening? Is the treasurer listening? Please, is big no for the poor. Don't increase the VAT for us. It's going to hit us very hard. Please don't take away the SRD. Yes, Cathy, I do sympathize with our government. 60 billion. I know the big question we need to debate where the government is going to get that money. But why, if that question is a big question, why we are coming to us first than really take another avenue that you can. But you are coming straight to the pool.
Okay. Nyaniso, I think you've made your point clear out in Worcester. Let me see. Lefoko, you're in the Northwest. Good morning.
Okay. You know, I was listening to an interview of Duma Kuule. You know, you ask yourself, this guy was saying that the UIF has got 140 billion in surplus. So if the minister is looking for 60 billion, he can get it from there as well, because it's intergovernmental. And he also said something even more, you know, okay, you just wonder. He said between the PIC and I think the South African Reserve Bank or something, he called it SA Inc. He said together those, they've got 4.2 trillion in surplus. With that, we can squash the South African debt and get that 60 billion, etc., etc. Then, Cathy, you ask yourself, why is the government not listening to these kind of people? Because he pointed out something even more strange. He said the government's own report of, I think the last financial year or something, was saying that the last VAT increase was actually detrimental to the South African economy. But the same people are coming back and wanting to do the same thing. So, Obana Usketi, when you talk about incompetency, this is incompetency at the highest level. Because it does not make sense why someone out there, an economist, can see all of this, but they don't see it. And he's saying that they've written to them, they proposed stuff to them, and they're not taking their proposals. So this government, when Usketi, is so incompetent, it's frightening, because the next thing, it's going to be the income tax. And this is why I always complain about ANC policies that have gotten us in trouble right now. It's the same thing with this NHI policy. They want to tax us. If you have a bond, you pay your bond, you're struggling, you're just trying to keep up. They increase your income tax. It means your take home is going to be even way less. To even, I just don't get this government. But anyway, it was an interesting interview. I soaked up a lot of what you were saying, and it just shows you that we are not led in this country. Okay.
Look, Tabang, we are going to be having Duma as one of our guests in the discussion we're having in the next hour. But the point that you're raising is really how truly open is the finance minister to alternative ideas. And that's what this process of consultation would also reveal, depending on whatever he says tonight. Because you're either consulting with intent or you're just doing it as a tick box exercise to show that, well, you said it wasn't done, now it's done.
Meet TJ, the magician. Well, he isn't quite the magician, but shame, let's call him that. The other day he tried to do that coin ear trick. Poor Owami is still in the hospital with a 5 rand coin stuck in his ear. He tried getting his pit bull, Mufasa, to levitate. Oh, he got that right. But now Mufasa is levitating through Tembisa, and somehow TJ forgot to read the section on how to get Mufasa back down. It's tough being a magician, but luckily for TJ, Britain's Got Talent Ultimate Magician will be the perfect inspiration for him to be the best magician in Tembisa. Catch Britain's Got Talent Ultimate Magician Saturdays at 7:30 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
Copperbelt ladies and Durban ladies both want to collect maximum points in the early days of the season. Who will dominate this 90 minutes? Limpopo or KZN? This is the Hollywood Bet Super League. Catch Mzansi Queens of the beautiful game. Copperbelt ladies versus Durban ladies on Saturday 15 March at 11:30 a.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, Clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
Call us on 086 000 2032.
Good morning, Katrina and SAFM listeners. Kimarumo Maike. Onga now sounds like he's feeling sorry for for the mayor. He says that they're not enemies, they're not what they are now enemies, I must tell him. But my story, Cathy, all I can tell you is that these guys, these mayors, these HOD, they are just too powerful, especially in the municipalities. I would imagine that case of Gumede in KZN of 400 million with tenders. Where is she getting those? Where are they getting these powers from? To award such a tenders with such a huge amount of money. Imagine the one of 1.1 billion from somewhere in the department there to one company. They're just their powers are too extreme, man. Good morning, Cathy. My room.
Hashtag SAFM Talking Point.
Yeah, Marumo, look, we'll keep an eye on what unfolds in Matatiele, and hopefully Wonga will also keep us updated with some of the developments there. We do have quite a lot of listeners in Matatiele who also give us, different updates on the situation there. Maluleke, in Limpopo, you're back on the line. You're talking about bullying at your child's school.
Yes. And, as they were bullying her, as I was telling you about the school clothes that she was wearing and stuff, that your father is not working, that's why you have torn shoes and stuff, then she was selected to play the soccer team for boys, and she's a girl. Then they start bullying her to say she won't get soccer boots and whatnot, because they know our background to say your father's not working. How are you going to get soccer boots? So yesterday when they say they will only choose 6 players who go to Johannesburg to Gauteng for the trials. She was one of the kids who were chosen. And then they still bullied her to say, you better give someone the space because you know your parents won't afford for you to go that side. And when she came back home yesterday, she sit in her room and not Javela. The Javela, then she drank Javela. She nearly committed suicide, but her sister, she's not fine, and Ramisa clinicking, so to say. The bullying is not good to some kids. Because as a 12-year-old thing, she's not worth living because of her family background. Because of we are not working and stuff. And so we as parents, we must teach our kids to say, we are not the same as because now when I ask her, can't you tell me good things, and then I cannot blame you for you are not working. So I thought to make things easy for him now, get your flow back, and I said, but that's not your decision to take. Now if it means you have to leave the soccer, then do it. Go hella baller than to take your life. Stop playing soccer, and they will see. Somebody may will donate shoes for you and proper school uniform, rubber sharp. But to take your life because of some kids are bullying, and if only parents can tell their kids,
Sure.
Yeah.
Maluleke, I'm so sorry about what your daughter has been through, and one obviously gets the sense of just the deep burden that she's walking around with, not only around feeling like she's a burden to you, but also then the pressure coming through from her peers at school who are bullying her. I'm curious to know, what do you say to her? How have you been handling the conversations with her? Because I imagine that this is probably not the first time that she's experiencing this.
when last time high school, when she got to high school, then she said to me, Papa Bare sometimes when I talk to them, they say, are my shoes talking or is it me who are talking? I told her, even in when you go to, if you can look at white people, most of them so if you are going home to school barefoot, it's not a problem, because there are some kids who are going there and they are privileged. So if you feel like you don't want to use the shoes, it's summer either way. Because I try all the way, on all means, to me that feel that she's a problem. Like we sit down and talk. And
how does it affect you as a parent, Maluleke? From what I'm understanding, you are unemployed. The mother of your child, is she employed?
No, she's unemployed also.
So there's no employment in the household. How do you guys survive?
We survive. She she can, if someone wants someone to clean the house, she does those odd jobs. Then we can put food on the table. And then she also, even the young girl, she get a child support grant, so it helps with Akuna school and pay for transport.
And
so
you, are there any menial jobs that you also do from time to time?
Yes, it's if for toilet or something, I do those things. Like if I make sure so.
And I'm assuming that your daughter goes to a no-fee school.
Yeah, no, she doesn't pay school fees.
Yeah, very strange that you would have that level of bullying in a school where many of the children are coming from similar backgrounds, similar experiences.
Yeah, especially this thing on Fridays, the kids home clothes. It's that thing Nike and what, and when your daughter has a uniform with that's why you're not wearing anything. So it's the level of bullying in Limpopo, it's too much.
Okay.
It's too much, yeah.
All right, Maluleke. I'm sorry about the experience that your daughter has had to go through. I don't think that the bullying, though, is limited to the school that she's in and to Limpopo as a province. It's all over the country. It is all over the country. Just that people don't speak up about it in the way that you have today as a father who's concerned about his daughter. Sure, yeah, that really, really moved me. It's just after 10 o'clock, time for your latest news headlines.
In our top stories, expectations ahead of the budget speech and SADC to hold extraordinary summit on DRC security. Good morning. A Pietermaritzburg-based advocacy group is against the increase of value-added tax VAT, as this will put a further strain on the poor and economically marginalized. The Pietermaritzburg for Economic Rights and Dignity says it will rather see a further increase of the social relief grants and old age grants, as this will bring relief to households in a stagnant economy. The organization voiced its views ahead of the Finance Minister Inoko Dongwana's budget speech this afternoon. The speech was postponed 2 weeks ago following a stalemate between the GNU's major partners, the ANC and the DA, on whether or not to increase VAT. The organization's spokesperson, Sibusiso Mboto, says a VAT increase will further burden the poor.
Any suggestion of a tax at this moment is premature, because our belief is that VAT as it stands makes everything unaffordable. And if you are going to extend it, whether it's by 0.5% or by 2%, it's going to really suffocate poor people, because at the end of the day, VAT is applicable across the board. And poor people, just like everyone else, need to buy airtime, they need to buy food, and they need all sorts of things. And therefore, any talk of VAT at the moment is a no-go area for us.
Meanwhile, the DA says it has given government multiple solutions on how to reconfigure the budget without cutting essential services. DA spokesperson Karabo Kakao.
You can, one, have a 50% reduction in government advertising budgets. You can, two, have a 33% reduction in travel and catering expenditure across all departments. Number three, you can have a hiring freeze for all non-essential government positions for the next 12 months. And then lastly, you can have a national audit of ghost employees, because we know that the state has a lot of ghost employees. So there is a way to cut unnecessary government expenditure.
The Ekurhuleni Metro Council has resolved to establish an ad hoc committee to investigate allegations of misconduct, corruption and fraud within the council speaker's office. Last month's council sitting collapsed while dealing with this matter. The DA has now tabled a motion of no confidence against the speaker and EFF councillor Ntabiseng Chivenga. The ad hoc committee is expected to report back to council on its investigation within 3 months. Ekurhuleni ANC caucus chief whip Pelisa Nkunjana says this shows all political parties in council remain committed to clean governance, transparency and accountability.
Council cannot afford to ignore or brush aside these allegations as if they are minor. They demand our collective commitment. If wrongdoing is found, action must be taken without fear or favor. Equally, if these claims are baseless, those unjustified accused must have their names cleared. Let this moment serve as a reminder that the position we hold are not for personal gain, but for service to our people.
Ekurhuleni Mayor Nkosindipile Xhakaza will this morning give an update on the R21 bus crash that claimed the lives of 16 people yesterday. The bus driver lost control of the bus and it overturned. More than 40 people were rushed to various hospitals. Yesterday, Xhakaza visited the Tembisa hospital where some of the victims are being treated and said they will continue to provide support to the affected families.
We've extended our deep sorrow to all the families, the friends and the loved ones for those who have lost their lives and those who are actually injured. And really is for us to continue to offer support, to be compassionate to the families that have been affected.
The Southern African Development Community SADC will hold an extraordinary virtual summit of heads of state and government on Thursday. The meeting will discuss the security situation in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Bonolo Maribe reports.
The emergency SADC meeting to take place later this week will also get a report from the Organ on Politics, Defense and Security, which deliberated on the escalating situation in the Eastern DRC. In this meeting, leaders will also discuss whether troops deployed in the DRC should be withdrawn. Recently, South Africa lost 14 soldiers who have been deployed as part of a SADC peacekeeping mission. Meanwhile, the M23 rebel group fighting with the Congolese army have proposed a political dialogue to the Kinshasa government in an effort to reach a ceasefire in Congo, but has yet to be materialized.
Recapping the top story, a Pietermaritzburg-based advocacy group is against the increase of VAT as this will put a further strain on the poor and economically marginalized. The Pietermaritzburg for Economic Rights and Dignity says it will rather see a further increase of the social relief grants and old age grants as this will bring relief to households in a stagnant economy. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide.
As the cost of living rises, from school fees to the price of cereal, you can take comfort in knowing that with Outsurance, you could save big on your car insurance. Savings that could make a real difference to your budget every month. Outsurance client Mikey knows all about it.
These guys are super fast, they're very helpful. My bank account is flexing.
Why wait? Switch and save today. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. Outsurance is all about giving you value for your money. Enjoy life-saving services like Help It Out, with 24/7 access to panic assistance, roadside assistance, and home assistance with just a tap on the app.
Feel good. That means that I'm being looked after.
Make today the day you switch. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. With Outsurance, you always get something out. A licensed insurer and FSP. Limits apply. T's and C's online.
South Africa's domestic 50-over cricket competition, the One Day Cup, hits fever pitch this week with the final set for Sunday 16 March at Bolland Park in Paarl. Gold Rush Bolland has finished the top of the log and secured a home final. They will take on the winner of the qualifier match between the Hollywood Bets Dolphins and Momentum Multiply Titans. Gather your family and friends, Waza Nawe, and be part of the action. Get your tickets at cricket.co.za. First Touch ladies have a tough assignment to demonstrate the importance of a good first touch. Meanwhile, TS Galaxy Queens refuse to settle for anything less than 3 points. This is the Hollywood Bet Super League. Catch the thrilling battle between First Touch ladies and TS Galaxy Queens on Saturday 15 March at 2:30 p.m. live on SABC 1. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
It's 10 after 10 o'clock. Welcome to the second hour of the Talking Point. Coming up in this hour, we're going to be then looking ahead to this afternoon, a critical moment for the country. But what has the last couple of weeks entailed in as far as the consultations to reach a consensus around the budget that we are expecting to be tabled today? Signs of progress, or will it lead to paralysis, is part of the question we'll be asking our panelists who will be joining us shortly. Before we get into it, though, we'll take a couple of your WhatsApp voice notes from the open line.
Princess Cathy, good morning to you, good morning to your team, good morning to all our SFM listeners. It's Uncle Jai, the truck driver in Cape Town. Cathy, I know you like municipal watch money municipality interviews, but please help us. We need someone from bargaining council or anyone from labor department. You know, this Bloemfontein bargaining council, if they are listening, they are too corrupt. They are protecting one of the biggest companies there in Bloemfontein. That company is abusing drivers, unnecessary deductions, loan forms. Please, Cathy, do so. I would like to engage that interview.
Morning, Cathy. It's Sikelelo in George. I cannot get my qualification. I cannot graduate because my results are withheld because I have outstanding fees. So I owe about almost 30 because it's 29 point something thousand, just close to 30. And I would like to appeal because to anyone who can assist, because that qualification would open doors for me. I'm doing business and it's taking time. Farming business is taking time. I try to find land and make something, but it's taking time to give me something.
Yo, Cathy, my Lulaga story is very, very heartbreaking, I must say. Very heartbreaking. I don't know what to say. You know, like it's... there are a lot of kids out there which are like her daughter facing bullying, difficulties for stupid reasons. Sometimes I even wonder, like, what the parents are teaching their kids at home. You know, I've got a friend of mine who is also a teacher. Every time when she tells me some of the story that is happening in schools, like, I really feel like crying. And I even ask myself that if I want to start helping or assisting, where would I start? Because I just learned that whatever thing that I'll be doing, it's like a drop in an ocean. Like it's really, really, really painful. I'm sorry, my brother.
Oh, Cathy, listening to Maluleke's story, oh man, it's heartbreaking to hear what this man is narrating. Oh man, I wish that parents who are well off can teach their children the way of life. That if another kid has nothing, it does not mean that they are nothing. It's heartbreaking to hear what Maruleke is saying. No.
The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
Yeah, we continue the conversation on the Talking Point, leading conversations that move us. And I second what our listeners have said about Maluleke's call. In fact, I'm still just trying to process all that he said. And it's a call. It's a call for us as society to make sure that we do better and to also help our kids do better, right? Where is the care? Where is the empathy that one would think we are teaching and transferring over to our children so that they do understand that we don't live in an equal society, but it doesn't make the other person any less of a human being because their shoes are torn, because their clothes are torn. That individual is still worthy of respect. That individual is still worthy of dignity. And it's our job as a society to affirm that dignity. So, yeah, I'm still going to think about that call this afternoon and see what the best way to respond is, especially through leading conversations that help influence and move us together as a society. I'm also still so deeply moved by his call, and I'm glad that his daughter was able to survive that attempt to commit suicide. Okay, so we're going to change gears now and get into our conversation for 10 o'clock, and it's focusing on the budget speech that we're expecting this afternoon. The Finance Minister, Enoch Godongwana, is expected to table his budget. The big question is around consensus. Have the parties in the Government of National Unity been able to reach sufficient consensus around this budget speech? They may not be voting on it today, but because it was opposed the last time to the point of being postponed, it's certainly not something that we want to see happen again today. Mervyn Abrahams is the program coordinator at the Pietermaritzburg Economic Justice and Dignity Group. Mervyn, good morning to you.
Good morning, Cathy. Good morning to the other panelists, and good morning to all your listeners.
Duma Gubule is a research associate at the Social Policy Initiative. Duma, good morning.
Hi, Cathy. Did Isabel tell you the Social Policy Initiative shut at the end of last year?
Yes, you're right.
Yes,
you're
absolutely
and then, right.
Yes, and you did a video for us about
I did.
how it shut, yeah.
So
but anyway, I'm now
off in my mind.
Yeah, I'm now an independent, a columnist and an independent.
Okay, wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you for that correction, Duma. Obviously, half of my brain is asleep this morning. Elizabeth Baini is a member of the steering committee of the Budget Justice Coalition. Elizabeth, good morning.
Good morning, Cathy. Good morning to your listeners. Thanks for having us.
Before we get into just looking at this afternoon and really perhaps what some of the expectations are and unpacking whether or not the conversation has moved significantly between February and now when the minister first attempted to table that budget, I want to get a sense from you, with all of the reporting that has taken place, about the talks that are happening between the members of the coalition government, the parties in this coalition government. Are you at all seeing signals of progress in those talks? Or do you think that the debate around what should go into the budget and how it should be structured has struck an ideological core to the point where it now risks creating a state of paralysis for the government, especially if, we are unable to pass this budget once it starts heading to the committees, is debated, and then has to be voted on. Mervyn?
So, Cathy, of course, the starting point is that all budgets, and this is not a South African feature, but any budget is informed by an ideological political position. The budget is about what objectives we want to achieve in society, etc. And we know that there are differences amongst the GNU parties. But I think that after the dramatic effect of the last one, there probably were some discussions within Cabinet. So I do expect that the Minister will deliver the budget today, and I do expect that there would have been some level of consensus reached within Cabinet on the budget. Of course, we have to wait for the budget itself to see which ideological positions had kind of trumped others. But I do expect that we will get a budget today.
Duma?
Thank you so much for having me. I just want to start by, I've been really depressed about the quality of the public debate on the budget. And it's a fundamental misunderstanding of how economic policy works. The budget does not operate like a household budget or a company income statement. I will start by quoting from John Maynard Keynes in a radio interview in 1933. He is the father of macroeconomics. He said, "You will never balance the budget through measures which reduce national income. The Chancellor would simply be chasing his own tail." So what the Keynes was saying is that unlike if a household knew that when I cut spending, my salary is going to go down, no household would cut spending because that's how an economy works. So that's what Keynes is saying. He's saying that austerity, now the debate that we're having is about two different ways of dispensing austerity. Do you do it through expenditure cuts, or do you do it through tax increases? Now, I'm saying both of them should be off the table. We should not be debating which is a better tax increase. That's number one. Number two, Keynes says it is the burden of unemployment and the decline in national income which are upsetting the budget. Look after unemployment and the budget will look after itself. So what Keynes is saying is that the primary objective of economic policy is to grow the economy and create jobs. Now, what has happened in South Africa over the past 16 years? We have had annual GDP growth of 1.1%. The average for 155 emerging and developing countries was 4.4%, and for emerging and developing Asia, 6.3%. So unemployment has increased by 6.3 million people. We now have 12.3 million unemployed people. We've got the second highest unemployment rate in the world. Now, if this was a company presenting these results to its shareholders for 16 years, we would have the shareholders would fire the CEO, because quite frankly, the only parties in the economy is the Reserve and the National Treasury. They are the only ones who have the macroeconomic tools to grow the economy and create jobs. So what I'm saying, we have seen monumental incompetence National Treasury and the Reserve Bank in terms of managing the economy. And then finally, I want to say, I reject all this talk about a budget shortfall. This is Treasury propaganda about it's an arbitrary number that they wanted to cut from our spending or austerity measures of 180 billion rands. which would be achieved through VAT increases. Now they're just going to debate about the composition of the 180 billion. But at the end of the day, it's an arbitrary number that means nothing. We should be debating, South Africans, we need a GDP growth target, and we should be talking about GDP growth shortfalls, because according to my calculations, to just create jobs for the annual new entrants into the labor market, 750,000 annual new people enter the major labor market every year until 2035. We need a GDP growth rate of 4%. Now, to start making inroads into unemployment, we need a GDP growth rate of 6%. So what we should be saying, we need a growth budget today. Anything less than a growth budget. One last thing, Cathy, is that our GDP per capita in perfect level measure of average living standards in 2024 was lower than in 2007. So we've had 17 years of declining living standards. If the government is going to continue with these insane austerity policies that do not achieve their objectives, we're going to have another 3 years of declining average living standards. So that's what I'm saying, is that let us start focusing on the GDP growth shortfall, and the target for growth this year, if we assume it's 1.5% and the 6% is where we want to go, my calculations, we need to inject 200 billion rands into the economy. It's as simple as that. Yeah.
Elizabeth?
The budget itself is also a political exercise, right? So it's open up for political negotiation. And I think the right approach and what we expect to see come 2 o'clock today is for the minister to table his proposal and then for cabinet to then take over to deliberate and to obviously fine-tune it to see if they agree with all the proposals, and if what they don't agree with, how they envisage revising or correcting before they sort of approve it as a piece of law. So I think it is open for contestation because it is a government of national unity. It is a collective. If we have to use the budget social justice as a coalition as an example, we are of diverse opinions and focus, but we've come together for a collective good or a common goal. And so it is similar to what this new government is trying to do or has to do. We've never been here before, and it is an opportunity to exercise, a new aspect of our democracy. And this has really put a really important conversation on the table. I think, right now we are seeing a citizenry that is more engaged with the budget, as an important piece of legislation beyond, previously we just say, budget speech, people listen, and then they moved on. They want to know if alcohol is safe or cigarette is safe or whatever syntax that they are interested in. But now it's put onto the table really important conversation about where our country is going economically, our human rights, and whether or not it is protected enough through the allocations of the budget. So I think there will be a table budget come 2 o'clock. Whether or not it speaks to the needs and the current situation that we are facing as a nation, we are yet to see. We haven't seen it. What we are reading in the media, in my opinion, is hearsay, because we are not in those private engagements. So we can only speak on issues that are in the public domain as it comes from, if I may say, the horse's mouth. Cathy.
All right, Elizabeth, thanks for that. Mervyn, when we reflect on the VAT hike in 2018 that increased from 14% to 15%, there was a commitment at the time that there would be an expansion, right, of zero-rated items, and also that there would be a look into the effectiveness of the VAT increase. in as far as the extension of zero-rated items is concerned, that list didn't go quite as far as some lobby groups were hoping it would. Also, the review of the effectiveness of the increase in VAT, it has some big questions around it, as you know, the Treasury itself, with its own studies, has seen that it wasn't quite as effective as they wanted it to be. I want you to speak on these two issues for me, so that as we go into this afternoon, we know what we are listening out for beyond just the whether or not VAT has increased by 0.5% or 1% or whatever the case might be.
So, Cathy, the issue around zero rating is quite a complex issue. But I think it's useful for us to think about it in this way. When I go into the store, any person goes into the store to buy anything, or let's say buy food, we do not check whether that food is zero rated or not. We check whether we can afford that food. So it is affordability that guides consumer choices as to what they buy or don't buy. Now, the role of zero rating is really to make that food more affordable, to bring the prices down. And what we often see in reality is that the prices of the zero-rated foods are not necessarily any cheaper than others. So one example, for instance, if you look at the basket of food that we track, for instance, is a 44 basket of food, 44 foods in the basket. 22 of those foods are zero-rated and 22 are not. When we look at the inflation on that basket and we look at the zero-rated foods, then we see that the inflation over the last year was 0.8%. And when we look at the foods that were not zero-rated, the inflation went up by 0.5%. So whilst it's meant to help, there are often other factors that influence price rises and so on. Do the retailers and the producers get through that VAT saving? All of those are factors over which government and none of us have any control. So in the end, it almost makes no difference to ordinary South Africans. Having said that, if we are serious about zero rating, it seems to me that there are other areas that we could focus on. So for instance, electricity is the second largest expenditure of low-income households from their budgets. But they pay value-added tax on electricity. So perhaps we need to say, okay, let's take a zero rate 350 kilowatts of prepaid electricity, and that in itself might free up some money for food later on. So our appeal is, can we think about this differently and look at what will have the greatest impact for households, and not just say this food, that food, that food, that food.
All right.
But a basket that really will be meaningful.
Thanks for that contribution, Mervyn. I'm going to take you to the latest news headlines. We're back with this conversation after this.
Yes, indeed. Let's do the headlines. The FF has called on MPs to reject and amend any tax increases expected in today's budget speech. The Ekurhuleni Metro Council east of Johannesburg's resolved to establish an ad hoc committee to probe allegations of misconduct, corruption and fraud within the council speaker's office. And the Gauteng Health Department says glaucoma is a leading cause of irreversible blindness. There's a full update at the top of the hour.
Taking a look at your markets this morning, the rand is currently trading at 18 rand 34 to the dollar, 23 rand 70 to the pound, and 20 rand to the euro. Markets in Asia ended today's trading session mainly weaker. The JSE mixed during mid-morning trade. Markets in Europe are trading higher. Gold is trading at $2,915. Platinum at $990 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil is at $69.80 a barrel.
Specsavers now looks after your hearing as well as your vision with Specsavers Audiology. With 60 stores and counting, we are South Africa's largest audiology group. For a limited time only, buy one rechargeable hearing aid and get 50% off the second. You heard right. Buy one rechargeable hearing aid and get 50% off the second. Find your nearest store at specsavers.co.za. Specsavers Audiology. Test your hearing and join the conversation. T's and C's apply.
S3 and Lorna Maseko are adding flavor to your Wednesday evenings. Lorna invites you on a journey of discovering new ways of transforming South African pantry staples into delectable and budget-friendly meals. From reimagining traditional South African dishes to infusing global inspirations, Lorna's inventive recipes and seasoned cooking tips inspire creativity and will empower viewers to navigate the kitchen with savvy resourcefulness. Tune into Lorna's Pantry, Wednesdays at 6 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
How long does a lifer have to serve time in prison before they are considered for parole?
It then depends on when were you incarcerated. People who were incarcerated before October 2004, those people by law were supposed to at least 20 years before they become eligible to be considered for parole placement. And currently we have in the main all those the people who were incarcerated after 2004 October. Those are the people who are now in the main are doing life sentences, and they have to finish that 25 years.
Department of Correctional Services spokesperson Singabako Ngumalo.
You're listening to the National Pulse. Missed it? Find the podcast at safm.co.za.
Not all MBAs are created equal. At Henley Business School Africa, we deliver career growth and advancement that goes beyond borders. As South Africa's only global business school, our internationally accredited MBA connects you to 100,000 global alumni leaders. Ranked number 1 in the world by The Economist for alumni network power, Henley is your gateway to a global career and the confidence to lead anywhere. Ready to make your mark? Visit henleysa.ac.za.
The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
We continue the conversation on The Talking Point. Signs of progress or paralysis. What will this afternoon reveal is part of the question we're asking in as far as it relates to the tabling of the budget by the Finance Minister, Enoch Godongwana. Mervyn Abrams, Dumat Gubule and Elizabeth Bani are my guests for this morning. Duma, I want to pick up on something that Mervyn raised, which I think is important. And he says that what the response needed in this moment is a different approach, to think differently around how we solve for some of the problems that we are facing. And the example that he gives of electricity is absolutely correct, because the prices of electricity have been escalating astronomically so for the last couple of years, to the point where the lack of affordability is now also limiting access to something that many South Africans have longed for as a service deliverable for many, many years. So now when people have the opportunity to actually access electricity, they can't, because it's so expensive. Do you get a sense that the consultative process has been from the prism of changing the thinking in as far as the approach to the budget is concerned? Or do we have still much of the same?
You know what? This is now 9 months, is it 8 months since this government of neoliberal unity? Is there one of the 62, 63 million South Africans who can tell us that their situation has changed for the better economically? I doubt it. Is there one economic policy that has changed under this government of neoliberal unity? No. So what we must remember is that the DA and the ANC, they agree on the macroeconomic policy fundamentals. They agree with the failed neoliberal economic policies of the past 16 years. They account for 87.5% of the government of neoliberal unity. So what we're going to see today is just the more things change, the more they remain the same. They're going to implement a different version of the ANC's failed economic policies of the past 16 years. And unemployment, according to my calculation, will continue to increase for the next 5 years of this seventh administration. My calculation, my modeling, shows that the number of unemployed people will increase by 500,000 each year until 2029. Now, will we have a country by 2029 if we continue on this idiotic, economic policy path? It just makes no sense to me, Cathy. Why would someone deliberately want to hurt the economy? It makes no sense to me. Unemployment will be close to 15 million people by the 2029. Will they change when it's 13 million unemployed or 14 million unemployed or 15 million unemployed? That is the question for me. But what we're going to see at 2 o'clock is just the continuation. It's just serving a different recipe in a different way. Failed policies, different combination of failed neoliberal economic policies. And to talk to what Mervyn was saying, we have to start thinking differently about the budget. The objective of the budget is not to balance the books. It's to grow the economy and create jobs. Nothing else should matter except job creation. How many times must we tell these parliamentarians that we want jobs? Now, these political parties, none of them in their manifestos talked about jobs. The ANC didn't have a jobs target. The DA had a lame jobs target. It doesn't even create jobs for the people who are entering the labor force. So we must change the conversation as society and say, we don't care about those numbers, Godongwana. We want to know what it's going to do for jobs. And what he's going to do for jobs, he's going to blue tick the issue of jobs, and he says it's not my job. The central bank says jobs and growing the economy is not my jobs. So if the central bank and the Treasury is not responsible for creating jobs and for growing the economy, who is responsible? Why do they care so much about this budget deficit, this debt to GDP ratio? Because if you look at the numbers, there's no universe in which we have a high debt ratio. Singapore 251, Singapore 175. Japan 251, world average 93, advanced economies 109%, emerging and developing economies 71%. I can go on and on. China 90%, Brazil 88%, India 83%, Egypt 91%. So why are we so focused on the wrong thing? Because as Keane said at the beginning, debt is measured as a percentage of GDP. If you focus on the bottom part of the equation, the GDP, as Keane said, the debt ratio takes care of itself. Okay. So we must stop focusing on the wrong things and focus on the right things. Yeah.
Mervyn, I know you have to leave shortly, so I'll ask you this last question before you do. Elizabeth, I'll give you a chance to come in as well in a moment. The feedback that is given to Treasury, to Parliament, around basic things such as the food basket, do you get a sense that policymakers are listening to individuals like yourself and the research that you are producing every single month that speaks to the state of the South African household?
So, Cathy, I do know that they are aware. We know they are aware because they sometimes communicate it. It's linked to something that Duma was saying. And that is that all research, all policy proposals are filtered through a particular understanding of macroeconomic policies that then the outcome of which then is very different from what we were expecting. That's why I'm saying we have to think differently. So, for instance, just to continue what Duma was saying, I think that there would be agreement that, yes, we need to create jobs. Yes, we need to grow the economy. I think the DA will say that, the ANC will say that, the EFF will say that, everybody will say that. Of course, the detail is how do we actually achieve it? And that's where we will actually, where we don't agree. So, for instance, the minister will say, I'll create more jobs by giving, continuing the employment incentive.
All right, it looks like I've lost Mervyn on the line there. Mervyn, can you still hear us? Okay, all right, it looks like we've completely lost him. Elizabeth, let me then come to you and give you an opportunity to weigh in here, in as far as the extent to which you believe any consultative process around the budget has been one that truly takes into account the suggestions that are put on the table, that is truly geared towards fundamental changes, or if it's done, as has been suggested, through the prism of continuing much of the same.
Thanks, Cathy. So, I mean, from our experience as a coalition, it's really difficult to sort of defend, Treasury, government sometimes when it comes to issues like public participation and obviously taking into consideration diverse voices and perspectives. In the situation we find ourselves right now, with all this conflict of interest and differing, ideologies. You go, you make submissions on the budget, you get the call, you make submissions, you are told, we hear you, we understand your pain, we feel it, and then the following financial year is another, a continuation of austerity agenda in budgeting. So it becomes difficult and a bit painful to think about investing time and energy on presenting lived experiences and highlighting a very important aspect of the budget, which is transformative power. The budget is not just a piece of legislation or an economic tool. It is also a transformation tool to change the lived experiences and the livelihoods of the citizens, people. And so when we are decrying, a cost of living crisis, a social, a polycrisis within the society in every sector of the economy, health, education, early childhood, and you get a budget that does not respond appropriately and progressively towards it, it becomes difficult to defend or to even say those public participation processes are yielding fruit, or they're not just a box-ticking exercise. So I think with this situation we find ourselves in, it's also highlighting a really important aspect of our democracy, and which is the consultative nature of policy making and public participation. Who are the public that get to have an input? Whose voices get reflected? Is it business? Is it the the elite in society, or is it the masses that are actually having this onslaught of social ills and difficulties being pushed onto them year on year? So it really is a conversation that we need to have. It's not just about balancing books or divvying up a pie, as the minister likes to sort of allude to, but it also speaks to the voices that the actual instrument itself reflects.
Duma, I remember you saying in a different interview that when it comes to the approaches that an individual like yourself has put before Treasury, there is some agreement from the minister on some of your ideas. And yes, you're not the only one with ideas about how we can be rethinking our budgeting. And you said he agreed with you, but then also acknowledged that they're not necessarily going to do anything about it, or they're not necessarily going to implement what you're suggesting. What do you think is behind that?
I've been struggling, Cathy, to understand it because, yes, as you say, I remember towards the end of last year, I met the finance minister and we had a little debate, and he says, Well, yeah, I agree with you. We have a GDP growth problem, not a debt problem. I said, but now, what he presented in the budget, the aborted budget, is exactly what he said he agrees about, because if we had a growth problem, you'd focus on growth and forget about these other measures like VAT increases or spending cuts that are anti-growth, So, I think we are all confused. Elizabeth, budget, all of us who present coherent research proposals, and I was listening to Mervyn. It was such a great, refreshing, understanding of the behavior of people as they make their consumption decisions. But it falls on deaf ears, and the proposals he made about electricity, because these electricity bills are unaffordable even for middle households. It is the side order of privatization, deregulation, and liberalization of the electricity market, and so the cost of that is that the government should be providing subsidies, direct subsidies to poor households that are in excess of what they're providing now, if you understand what I'm saying. So those are the kind of arguments that have come up. The other item in that food basket is transport. Have we changed anything in the taxi industry? Why don't we start subsidizing the taxis like we do with the buses? Why don't we formalize the entire taxi industry? What can we do to make the cost of transport cheaper? These are the issues that we should be talking about: transport, electricity, food, direct measures to improve food prices. And what we are doing, we focus on one tool: interest rates. Now, South Africans, you don't have to become an economist to know that Lesitja Kganyago can increase interest rates to 50%. They will not change the transport prices, the electricity prices, the food prices, the exchange rate. Those are the real drivers of the cost of living crisis. And whatever the Reserve Bank does is irrelevant to that. But we have to suffer. Why is making you pay more for your bond or for your house going to affect the electricity price that Mervyn was talking about? It makes no sense whatsoever. And we have the highest interest rates, one of the highest real interest rates in the world. Why? I just don't get it. Yeah.
All right. I'm going to take a quick break. I'm back with your contributions as well. And I see some of you challenging what our guests have said here. And I want Duma to respond to this one, because I think I agree with the question that we must be concerned about the high debt to GDP ratio, because, of course, that costs us more money to maintain in the interim. But we'll hear what you have to say. Give him and Elizabeth an opportunity to respond.
Something big is coming. 6:30 will never be the same. Amalanga Wafani, only on SABC 1.
This Human Rights Month, SAFM is deepening a culture of social justice and human rights. It's a time to reflect, engage, and take action for a more just society. From thought-provoking discussions to powerful stories, SAFM is leading the conversations that move us. Because your voice matters, your rights matter, and together we shape a better future. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. #SAFM Talking Point.
Good morning, Cathy. We must definitely be concerned about our debt to GDP ratio, because government is the biggest borrower of loans in the economy. And when government competes with households and businesses, they're competing for billions of rands. And that has the potential of increasing interest rates because of the demand for loanable funds coming from government. And when those interest rates go up, That makes it expensive for households and businesses to have access to cheap, affordable loans. That's why we care about the debt to GDP ratio. And as to Japan, Japan has the highest debt to GDP ratio simply because Japan's economy was in a state of recession for a long period of time, and no matter how much the Bank of Japan does quantitative easing, that economy refuses to climb out of a recession. And that's to do with the consumers of Japan. Thanks, Lionel Whitbank.
Cathy, and you listen and your guest there. Cathy, the cost of living in this country, Cathy. Currently, according to the law, it's $350 for the poor people and a lot more for the middle class and the rich people. I mean, seriously, how is that even possible? How can something like that be possible yet happening in the same country? Seriously, Cathy, this 35 billion rand allocated to the poor is extremely insufficient to sustain the survival of these people. So that money needs to increase before we can deal with all these other economical problems of this country in the budget. Thank you.
Cathy Mohlahlana on SAFM.
All right, thanks for those contributions. Duma?
Let me just repeat myself, Cathy. Our debt ratio is not high by international standards. I don't know how many other countries other than Japan, I must show, China, Brazil, India, Egypt, all at about 90%, 80%. The world average is 93%. Advanced economy is 109%. So it is not high by international standards. That is all I'll say. But the debt is measured as a percentage of GDP. So the higher debt ratio is a side order. It's a symptom of the mismanagement of the economy by National Treasury, because our economy has only grown by 1.1% a year. If the economy had grown by 5% a year, we wouldn't be sitting with this problem. I'm saying debt to GDP, focus on the bottom part of the equation and not, so even if the debt was high, austerity is not the way to reduce it. Because as I explained, when you do austerity, it results in a lower growth rate and a higher debt ratio. A household, so what we need to do is to spend more money into the economy and get this economy growing faster than it is now. We cannot continue with this low GDP growth. The second question is on the social relief of this fund. I thought it was absolutely ashamed that the finance minister was saying that scapegoating the poor people who get the SRD grant, the 35 billion rand, as the caller said, for the increase in VAT. Let me just explain. This 35 billion is 1.3% of government spending. It is the equivalent of the money that we give to the person on the street corner. Why is he making such a song and dance about a spending item that is so low? And why are we not transforming, as the ANC said in its manifesto, this SRD grant into a universal basic? And there is also a court case that the Treasury must stop its policies of creating bureaucratic obstacles to this people getting this grant.
Okay.
If 18 million people get the grant as they should, they have to pay 100 billion rands instead of the 35 billion rands that they're paying now. So last thing I want to say is that social security spending has a multiplier effect on the economy, and we commissioned research from Brazil when I was with the Social Policy Initiative, and it showed that it had a multiplier of 1.7 times. So it stimulates economies in Gugulethu, in Soweto, in Tembisa. So we should be implementing this universal basic income.
Yeah. Let me go to Mtata. Tata Stofile, good morning.
Yes, sister.
Yes, sir.
My input is going to be from a different perspective as an old civil rights activist. We were compromised here from the very word go. When this transmute dispensation came into play, you will recognize that our own people have been exploited in every possible way generation after generation, at the expense, at the sole benefit of the whites. And that strategy of enriching them has exponentially impoverished us. Now, to take us from that situation, let me just go and say the G7 countries, well, powerful countries, met in Great Britain after the COVID pandemic. They resolved amongst themselves to take them out of the doldrums of this economic ruin pandemic. That all the electrically involved multinational companies, dealing like of Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, should pay a huge sum of tax. And those companies agreed to pay that amount without any murmur. Now, all of us throughout the world, even in Africa, were enriching those companies. The AU did nothing about that. Now, if this government could do that and say those people must pay because every person all up in South Africa, as compared with people in Europe and USA, we are paying much more to use this thing for electrical use of equipment and instruments, including phones every day. Now, why not cause those people who are super rich, investing their own monies in the private islands where there is lowest taxation?
Okay.
They would take us out of this deep by far. Now, back to the same issue I raised earlier on. All indigenous Africans were paying taxes generation after another because they're not officially recognized as taxes, because they're being exploited. Now, to reverse that is to exempt all of them from paying taxes and uplift them. You start from agriculture. If there was agricultural development in all the possible places which could be fruitful in producing agricultural produce,
okay,
nobody should be suffering from hunger.
All right, Tata Stofile, we're going to have to leave it there. Thomas in Newcastle.
Ngiyavumelana noTata Stofile, Mama, to an extent where he says it's the whites are now benefiting only. The problem with us is all this jargon the gentlemen there that they are throwing out is to cause us, the common people, to be drunk or to be confused so that they will keep eating the money and making themselves rich. Right now, in South Africa, our economy is not uniting us as South Africans. And this is being done, it's not a mistake. They are planning it that way so that we will always be complaining one way or the other as the masses and getting nothing, and then they will come back to be the saviors, and then it's just a cycle. It's a cycle. It was the Americans, it's going to be the Russians, the Chinese, and our politicians, black elite, are the ones because they also are benefiting as a result. So there's nothing that's going to be done that's going to save us until we, the masses, rise up and realize that we don't need no liberator. We need to stand up for ourselves and come up with our own things of financial attitudes or whatever they call the term you guys call it in the jargon situation.
Okay.
And as long as we're going with this, we're getting nowhere.
Thomas, we're going to have to leave it there. Thomas in Newcastle. Unfortunately, we're completely out of time for this conversation, but you heard the views of Elizabeth, Duma and Mervyn on this issue. It's time for the latest news update.
EFF makes call ahead of today's budget speech and brother sentenced over Joburg restaurant shooting. Good morning. The EFF has called on MPs to reject and amend any tax increases expected in today's budget speech. This is the Finance Minister will deliver the 2025-26 financial year budget this afternoon. Last month, he proposed a 2% VAT hike to address a 60 billion rand budget shortfall, which was heavily criticised by opposition parties. The EFF's Sinawo Tambo.
I think it's inevitable that there's going to be a percentage point increase in value-added tax. just about the quantity of it now. And we must be prepared as parliamentarians, responsible parliamentarians, not only to reject that, but to amend it, because there's actually legislation that allows members of parliament to reject a proposed fiscal framework and revenue proposal. And that is exactly what the finance minister is going to present. The budget is not set in stone. What Treasury presents through the Minister of Finance, that's something that can only be accepted or rejected and must be constantly a back and forth engagement with Treasury. And therefore, it's up to parliamentarians now to participate in active bipartisanship and ensure that we create a growth and jobs budget.
Meanwhile, the Pietermaritzburg Economic Rights and Dignity Group says it would rather see a further increase of the social relief grants and old age grants, as this will bring relief to households. The group, Sibusiso Mboto.
Any suggestion of a tax at this moment is premature, because our belief is that that as it stands makes everything unaffordable. And if you are going to extend it, whether it's by 0.5% or by 2%, it's going to really suffocate poor people, because at the end of the day, that is applicable across the board. And poor people, just like everyone else, need to buy airtime, they need to buy food, and they need all sorts of things. And therefore, any talk of that at the moment is a no-go area for us.
Two brothers have been sentenced to life imprisonment for the 2022 shooting incident at a Johannesburg restaurant, which left one person dead and a Metro police officer permanently disabled. Police say a group of armed men attacked the security guard, entered the restaurant and robbed the customers. One person was shot and killed before the Metro police officer arrived. A shootout then ensued. The NPA's Pindim John Ndwane.
The Johannesburg Magistrates Court sentenced Willington and Zimani Sibanda to life imprisonment for the gruesome murder of Okan Donatis, who was killed at a restaurant in Johannesburg following a robbery that went wrong that was committed by the two brothers. The NPA continues to promote the safety of all citizens by prosecuting perpetrators of violent crimes without fear, favor, or prejudice.
The Kulileni Metro Council east of Johannesburg's resolved to establish an ad hoc committee to probe allegations of misconduct, corruption and fraud in the council speaker's office. Last month's council sitting collapsed when dealing with this matter. The DA has now tabled a motion of confidence against the speaker. The ad hoc committee is expected to report back to the council on its investigation within 3 months. Kulileni ANC caucus chief whip, Palisen Kunjana.
Council cannot afford to ignore or brush aside these allegations as if they are minor. They demand our collective commitment. If wrongdoing is found, action must be taken without fear or favor. Equally, if these claims are baseless, those unjustified accused must have their names cleared. Let this moment serve as a reminder that the position we hold are not for personal gain, but for service to our people.
The Gauteng Health Department says glaucoma is a leading cause of irreversible blindness and has warned residents to prioritise their eye health. This is the World Marks Glaucoma Day today. Glaucoma is caused by damage to the optic nerve, often linked to increased eye pressure. If left untreated, it can lead to permanent blindness. Department spokesperson Mutaletale Modiba.
We have research as well published by in the South African Medical Journal that indicates that the prevalence of glaucoma in South Africans aged 40 and above ranges from 4.5% to 5.3%, with primary open-angle glaucoma being the most common. Between April 2024 and January 2025, more than 2,000 patients were diagnosed with glaucoma at primary healthcare clinics, and they were referred to hospitals for specialized care.
Finally, an appeals court in France has ruled that the French state must compensate people in 2 Caribbean territories who can demonstrate that they've been affected by anxiety over exposure to a dangerous pesticide. The Court of Appeal highlighted the state's failure to protect people in Martinique and Guadeloupe from a pesticide used in banana plantations until it was banned 30 years ago. The top story, the EFF has called on MPs to reject and amend any tax increases expected in today's budget speech. That's SAFM News. I'm Greg Goos.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide.
Unlock a world of benefits. Welcome to SABC's TV License Rewards program. Ready to make your viewing experience more rewarding? Say hello to perks that go beyond just watching TV. Join us today at sabctvlicenserewards.co.za and instantly receive your first reward. But wait, there's more. You can get up to 500 Rand back. Become part of something bigger, a movement where watching TV isn't just a hobby. It's a catalyst for positive change. Register now at sabctvlicenserewards.co.za and open the door to a world of benefits. Plus, every time you tune in, you're making a difference. T's and C's apply. Remember, TV license fees aren't just payments. They make a difference.
The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
Hi, good morning, Cathy Mafuta. Yeah, Cathy, your guest is 120% correct. The fundamental reason for a budget is to grow the economy. That's the reason for a budget. All other things or factors come after that. If the budget doesn't aim to grow the size of the economy by creating business opportunities and widening employment, it cannot meet its objectives. The other thing, Cathy, what I'm always worried about is that the emphasis on foreign direct investments should be second. One should be firstly thinking about growing indigenous or local investors, because dependency on foreign direct investment is not a long way or a long term to depend on, given the situation, a global situation we currently have today, Kathy.
Hi, Cathy and listeners. Good morning. Selong Kopane from Duduza. Quick one. The problem with the budget and the Ministry of Finance and Treasury is that they are trying to balance the budget instead of being intentional about what their mandate is. If their mandate is economic growth, all efforts, all activities, all spending must be towards that, and not try and balance and please everyone. You can never please anyone with a limited budget, but you've got to be clear and intentional about your efforts and your spending. Put your money where your mouth is, Economic growth, economic growth, economic growth.
Morning, Cathy. Morning, Anonymous from Cape Town. Cathy, I've got a problem of those people that are blaming immigration officers for the illegal immigrants that are in the country. Forgetting one thing, those people were not just become illegal. They were legal in the country. They came legal, and then their visas or their status lapsed, and they didn't go back to their own country of origin. So South Africa does have any system that can track the people that are legal in the country and illegal in the country. Thank you.
The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
Well, in this hour, we are in conversation with the CEO of the Post Bank. It's about the conversion from the SASSA Gold cards to the Post Bank Black cards. You'd remember that date extended to the 20th of March due to many difficulties, administrative difficulties that have been experienced. Nikki Mbengashe is the CEO of the Post Bank. Nikki, good morning to you. Thanks for your time this morning. Hello, Nikki.
Oh, morning, Cathy. Morning, Cathy.
Oh, there we go.
There we go. Morning. Thank you for your time, and good morning to your listeners.
Sure. Thank you so much for coming onto the show. Before we get into where we are with the process, Nikki, I think it's well acknowledged now that there have been some serious challenges on the part of the Post Bank in terms of being able to meet the demand with this transfer to the Postbank black cards? It seems that things behind the scenes, from a technical point of view, simply were not ready for the number of beneficiaries that needed to be assisted. Why is that the case?
Maybe let me set the context correct, because I think that's a totally incorrect statement in totality, Kitty. So the project was planned to start in September. We actually did start in September. We always knew we had about 3 million beneficiaries to distribute to, and we knew that we can do that within 6 months because we did the calculations, we did the data, we found out where our beneficiaries are, we knew each and every province by district, almost to a town level, as to how many beneficiaries we knew. So we knew how many we can produce in an hour, we knew how many we can do in a day, and therefore how many days we will need. And we planned the project in that manner. The difficulty that we did experience was that we did not see beneficiaries coming forward in the first 3 months of the project. Now we absolutely not blaming beneficiaries. I think that's something that we also take on our side. But what we can, in retrospect, what we believe happened is that we probably did create a sense of comfort for the beneficiaries, because just before December, we wanted to comfort every beneficiary that their gold card that they had at the time, or they have still, is going to work until December, because there were some miscommunication that happened before, that the gold card is expiring in December 2024. So we needed to assure people that your gold card is working. In fact, it's going to work even beyond December, as we can see now. And I think while we're doing that, making sure beneficiaries are not panicking, there's no anxiety around their access to their grants, what then the unplanned consequence of that was that they got comfortable and did not see the need to then go and quickly go change their black card. Because we started the communication and changing and swapping of the black card in 2023 already. We're starting throwing teasers. So for the first 3 months of the project, we didn't see anyone. And the proof of this is that currently we have actually now distributed to over 1 million beneficiaries at the end of last week. We've hit the 1 million mark. And the interesting thing about the 1 million mark, to show that it was not a technical thing on our side, really was that we just needed people to come forward. 46% of that 1 million was hit in 1 month. In February alone, we did over 450,000 cards that we distributed in 1 month. That now shows that technically we had the system, we had the capability. And I think you also made a right statement to say that the queues, the capacity, because now we were dealing with people, the volumes being concentrated within the last, and by the way, why was February different? The only difference that we saw in February, and we can see it in our numbers, on the 7th of February, we went and announced the deadline of the card. And as soon as we announced the deadline, we saw people coming forward. Our daily rate went from just less than 10,000 a month, a day, to over 20,000, to almost 25,000 a day that we could distribute. And we had not changed anything. Nothing did we change in our systems, in anything else, except that we had people coming forward. Now, of course, because some of the areas that we had were not capacitated to take that much volume at the rate that we saw, because as soon as we announced the deadline, people flooded in. Yes, and then there was a struggle in terms of keeping with that capacity, which I can now confidently communicate that we've settled that the queues, we're getting through every queue. People are not being turned away. I think we saw that overload really post the 7th announcement of the deadline. But since then, everything has been running rather in an acceptable manner.
Nikki, of course, one would say that the Post Bank should have anticipated the high volumes.
Which would be a fair statement, absolutely a fair statement. The challenge, though, remember, Postbank does not have branches nationally. So we have to create the branches that we see. Every area where we say we have a site for people to come and distribute their card, it means that it is a site that we had to erect in because we've been working on this project since 2023. So it is work. So it means that you have to hire people We don't have people on standby. You have to, I think one of the things that we locked a long time ago was never an issue, was a site available. Do we have a place where we can issue cards? We have more than enough of those. But the challenge has always been people, to hire people at the rate that you needed to hire, because we did to an extent anticipate the volume. But and the proof again is that it differs from province to province. In Gauteng, we could quickly accelerate because we had resources. We could tap into resources. We could bring on resources very quickly. By the way, we had a pool from different pools. We've worked with government pools. We've worked with our pool that we've recruited. We were now in the process of onboarding even service providers to help us because my apologies. We wanted to do that, but then there was a challenge with that at some point. But in areas where we could get the resources, we could quickly accelerate in terms of how many people we could put on sites to deal with the volumes. But in areas where we did struggle, where we are still struggling, for instance, in the Western Cape, it's a phenomenal that we're really trying to get to the bottom of it. We're struggling to get resources. We've tendered we've advertised the ads. I mean, we had about over 33,000 people at some point applying. But when you go through that pool, you find that it's not people who really qualified. They didn't have the instrumentation that we required, and therefore, from the conversion from that 33,000 has not been good, particularly in some areas such as the Western Cape.
And Nikki, that's precisely perhaps part of the problem. Is that you are effectively troubleshooting during implementation, and that is why part of the process has been seen and described as this administrative failure. You would have heard the Minister of Social Development in her own criticism of your organization and its handling of this. She too saying that, well, actually she's not satisfied with how the entire process has been handled. And there is a very strong sense that you have been caught on the back foot here.
But again, that's not necessarily true then, Cathy, because you're saying we troubleshooting.
Yes, how is it not true if even today we're still looking at issues of capacity in some provinces to help expedite the process? So that means that the experience of the customer is of delays in doing the switch over.
But then can I then make a statement? Because you asked me a question, then if you allow me an opportunity. Remember, when you plan a project, you always plan that I'm going to need so many resources. Let me recruit these resources. I'm going to need so many sites. Should this happen, what are the contingencies that I have in order for me to take care of risk and challenges that I may foresee? And then you work with that to ensure that you create those contingencies. So with capacity, when I say that we had about 33,000 people that we applied, that was one of our ways to create a pool of people in which we can reach out to employ. We started recruitment a long time ago. So when I was talking about recruitment, I'm not talking about recruitment now. We started about recruitment because, remember, the project was started in September already. By the way, the number of sites that we even needed versus what we needed now, and again, quite an important thing is that, remember now, we are executing a project that was supposed to take 6 months. We are doing it in 3 months. And therefore, we do have to catch up. So when we say that we are now making changes as we move, we have to, because when a project comes to a point, and therefore you need to pivot in ways that you had done this because something else came to the fore, then you change tactics. When we saw earlier, because we did not react just because after 3 months we said, oh no, we don't have people. When we saw earlier in the first month that people were not coming forward, one of the things, for instance, that we put incentives, because we had a conversation as to what could be that's making people struggle, because we could only see people coming through during their pay run when they go and collect their money. We had numbers during those 3 to 4 days max. But what's happened outside of that, one of the things was like, okay, let's give them an incentive to come through. Then we gave an incentive of about, if you come through during this period, we'll give you, which I believe was between 1,200 and 1,500, so that we can motivate people to come forward. But not only motivate people to come forward, because for us, we wanted, if the struggle is financial, for you to come outside of the pay run, because we understand our beneficiary, we understand our customer, that they have the money, but outside of the other days, that money might be running short. And therefore, we wanted to provide for them that financial capability to come through. That was not even something that worked. It's still. And again, in our assessment, in our analysis of what went wrong, was not necessarily what went wrong, what impacted them, because they were comfortable off the card. The only thing that people, I think, were willing to debate around whether was that a good decision or not, was really around announcing the deadline. Because again, as much as we thought it's money that probably prevented people coming, we are seeing people coming out of those 3 days now. People come through outside the 3 days. They're coming through from the first of the month to the last day of the month. So it was never necessarily the primary thing. But I think again...
But why would it have been a bad decision to announce the deadline?
That's exactly what I'm saying. That the reason we made a decision was a strategic decision on our side, that you don't want to announce a deadline too early, because then you create panic, because you want people to be comfortable that their yellow card is working. So the reason for us not to announce the deadline before December, end of December, was a strategic decision that we made. Now, in retrospect, as you can always do with the ability to look backwards, you could ask, should we have announced earlier? But again...
Well, absolutely. You should have absolutely announced it earlier, because you yourself said that you had given yourself X amount of time to be able to give beneficiaries the opportunity to transition. So as long as people are not empowered with that information, then you can't expect them to act.
Cathy, I cannot even argue with you, because that's a view. That's a view, right? All I'm sharing is that strategically, we made a decision because we did not want to cause panic. Because we've seen it in the past, that the confusion appears when you have two cards and then people are saying, as we see now, I mean, us defining the 20th deadline and still having to explain that to people that the 20th deadline just means your yellow card is not working, but we will still be able to come and get your card be issued post that. We can even see that confusion now, because we've done this. We've done such announcements and we've seen the confusion. So we wanted clarity. We didn't want panic. We want people to get comfort that they'll have access to their grants, and therefore use the yellow card, knowing very well, please let me finish, Cathy, knowing very well that post-December, we still had 3 months to run in order for us, for people to come through. So that was always the strategy.
Sure, we have to move on to the present. You're now sitting with a situation where you have said that just at the end of last month, you're sitting over 1 million beneficiaries that had transitioned. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So how many people still need to migrate?
So we still have over close to probably 1.6, 1.7 people still need to migrate.
So you're looking more at the majority of recipients that still need to transition?
We still have over 1 million people that still need to migrate.
Yes, and I'm saying in terms of the overall numbers that you're looking at here, is that closer to half of recipients, or is it on the other side of half, that it's more than half the recipients that still need to migrate?
So our total recipients are sitting at about 2.8, just 2.8. So now we're sitting at about probably 1.1 that we've done, probably right now. This is the 1 million was the stats from last week Friday. So we're probably getting closer to 1.1. So we are sitting at around 1.7 beneficiaries still to migrate, yes.
Is that not a concern for you at this point, given the fact that we're a week away from the 20th of March, but the biggest concern, of course, is going to be what happens at the end of March when distributions need to run again?
But that's what we had to plan. So our concern was always, the one thing that we need to guarantee is that people need to have access to their grant. whether they have a yellow card, whether they have a black card. And that we've made provision for. We have made the undertaking that even if, as much as the yellow card stops working on the 20th, you still have up until the end of the month, up until the next payment run, which I believe runs from the 2nd or the 3rd of next month, to come collect your card, your black card. So you have up until the end of March and near the first few days of the next month to still collect your card. I think that's a very important thing. We do not stop distributing cards on the 20th of March. The only thing that happens on the 20th of March is that the yellow card stops being functional. So if you have funds in it, you will need then the black card. But you can still go get your card before the next payment run. If you so happen to still not have that card by that time, we have made provision that people can still go to the old manner of how they used to get their grants. That is to go into the post office. Now, we have made sure that there's enough post offices. We have over 540 post offices nationally. We have now done the planning of those post offices. We've checked where exactly they are. We've planned with the post office, working very closely with the post office to ensure that everywhere where there could be a beneficiary that doesn't have a yellow card, they can go access their grant. Now, we reverted back to that process because that process we technically closed last year, March, but it was always a process that beneficiaries have always used. We were driving beneficiaries to move to a card because we want financial inclusion. We want to create a cashless society, as is our strategy. But if you still don't have your black card by the next payment run, which is the first week of April, please go to your nearest post office. You will get your grant.
And Nikki, I think that your intervention plans, as you have described them, are also an acknowledgement of the fact that the uptake of these black cards has not been at the rate and scale that you thought it would be.
But Cathy, we've talked about that. Remember, I've made that very clear. We had planned to do this in 6 months. Of course, it will not happen in 3 months. That we're very open about, that we've shared about, that there is no way that you can distribute to 3 million people within 3 months, something that you should have done and must have been done within 6 months. We've made provision for the project to distribute over 6 months. But we are here now. As you said, we move away from the past. We are here now. So what do we need to do now to ensure that people are not left without their money? That is the most important thing for us, that whether you have a black card or you don't have, you have access to your grant. Because your bank account still stays your bank account. It's just how you access the money inside your bank account. So even if you don't have the black card, even in April, your money will still be paid into your bank account. So when you go to a post office, they're actually, it's like you going to a normal branch and you say, I want to withdraw. You're just withdrawing out of your account. So no money will be lost. No one will lose their grant. Your grant will go into your bank account, which stays, remains the same. Whether you have a yellow card or a black card, your bank account remains the same.
Nikki, I'm going to ask you to stay on the line, please. For now, it's 11:30. Time for your latest news headlines.
A quick look at the headlines. There's a call on government to address payment delays from provincial health departments to suppliers. The EFF has called on MPs to reject and amend any tax increases expected in today's budget speech. And the Gauteng Education MECs today expected to visit the families of 4 learners who died in a car crash on the N12 in Daveyton, east of Johannesburg. There's a full update at 12 p.m.
Something big is coming. 6:30 will never be the same. Amalanga Wafani, only on SABC 1.
The citizens are not willing to settle for anything less than a win.
And now it's with Haaland and on to Foden. Foden to finish the game. And he does.
However, the Seagulls want to triple their efforts to collect valuable points against reigning champs.
Lovely touch for Mitoma. Mitoma could be away. Here it is. Mitoma 1-on-1. Mitoma, delightful.
This is the Premier League. Witness the superb contest, Manchester City FC versus Brighton and Hove Albion FC on Saturday, 15 March at 4:30 p.m. Live on S3. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
From 10 to 16 March 2025, the South African National Biodiversity Institute is hosting its first National Gardens Week. Visitors can enjoy free entry to all national botanical and zoological gardens across South Africa, including Kirstenbosch National Botanical Garden and the Pretoria Zoo. This year's theme, Grow Your Joy, invites visitors to embrace nature, wellness and community by taking a peaceful walk, joining a guided tour, or learning about conservation in some of the country's most breathtaking green spaces. Nature has never been this open to all. Celebrate, protect, and enjoy biodiversity wealth. Visit www.sanbi.org for details.
Bafana are taking on Lesotho at the new Pitamukaba Stadium on the 21st of March 2025 at 6 p.m. for the FIFA World Cup 2026 qualifier. Come early, dressed to commemorate Human Rights Day and support Bafana for a chance to win prizes from our host, Limpopo Government and Polokwane Municipality. Gates open at 3 p.m. and tickets start from 70 Rand for adults with special rates available at 40 Rand for children under 12 at all Ticket Pro outlets. If you can't make it to Polokwane, catch the game live on SABC2 at 6 p.m. or visit sabcsport.com. For more details, visit safa.net and Bafana on X and TikTok.
South Africa's domestic 50-over cricket competition, the One Day Cup, hits fever pitch this week with the final set for Sunday 16 March at Boland Park in Paarl. Gold Rush Boland has finished the top of the log and secured a home final. They will take on the winner of the qualifier match between the Hollywood Vets Dolphins and Momentum Multiply Titans. Gather your family and friends, Wazanawe, and be part of the action. Get your tickets at cricket.co.za.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, Clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
Hashtag SAFM Talking Point.
Good morning, Keith. Pardon my ignorance. Is it not that the confusion also comes from the fact that the post bank operates within the post office, and we've been told that the post office is facing liquidation and branches are losing left, right, and center? So could that not be part of the confusion? Because where are these post bank branches that are functional or operational? I don't know. Maybe I'm just confused.
Good morning, Sis Cathy. This is Anonymous from Brantford. The problem with these post bank black cards, most of the recipients, their cards are at loan sharks, machonistas. That's why post bank is struggling for them to change to the black cards, because most of these people's cards are held by the loan shark.
Okay, Nikki, do you want to respond to those questions, please?
Maybe let me clarify. Is there confusion? So we are working with 5 retailers and some selected stores of some of the retailers. USave, Boxer, Checkers, Pick and Pay, and Spar. Some of their selected stores will have a Postbank site where people can actually go and get their card. Now, this was strategic why we used these retailers. 4 of them, we are in partnership with them. This is where our beneficiaries get their funds. They go and swipe with a card or buy these retailers. The retailers will make some provision for the elderly to be sitting down during that time and make sure that the stores are catering for the numbers and the volumes of people. Yes, some of the beneficiaries will use the ATM because remember, like I said, we had stopped distributing, we had stopped dispersing grants at post offices. We had now converted all our people to a card system because we want to ensure financial inclusion. and therefore people were using these retailers. That's why we partnered with them. We knew that this is where our beneficiaries are going to, and hence why we partnered with these retailers. Now it is selected retailers. If you go to our website, if you've got our USSD, will check you, it will tell you which store near you, which retailer, which store, exactly where they're at. That is working with us, that might have that will have the site for you to go and exchange your card. You will find that there. So hopefully that clears the confusion. We are trying very hard to help society educate that Postbank and now Post Office are two different entities, two different boards, two different CEOs, completely different entities that are run separately. We use Post Office as a service provider for us to provide, as we sharing now. That's one option where you can go get your grant in April. We've made that provision for people to go because they're familiar with it. Again, that's why we chose it. They're familiar. They know their nearest post office. So I hope that clarifies. The second one on my show says it is really a sad story that we do have in South Africa, that we are seeing that indeed our people are struggling with their cards sometimes being taken by machinists. And where we see this is when people will come and be issued a card, and then the next month people are saying, I've lost my card. And we've done a little bit of research, and we're finding that people have not, they've said, I'm coming I've lost my PIN, I don't know my card. But some of the research is showing that, unfortunately, our people have embedded themselves, which is unfortunate because I don't think it's by choice, that people find themselves in this situation, and therefore they will have their cards left with machinists. So what he is saying is a true reality that we also see.
All right, Nikki Mbengashe, the CEO of Postbank, we'll leave it there for this morning. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Cathy.
Our final.
The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
Zelma, why are you shutting me up with your sting, hey? What is that? Our final conversation of the day is looking at the G20, and we're going to be having a G20 series with Lerato Tsebe. She's an independent African researcher. And this morning, of course, we are going to just look at where we stand in as far as the meetings that South Africa has held so far. Lerato, good morning to you, and thank you so much for doing this with The Talking Point.
Good morning, Cathy, and good morning to your listeners. Thank you very much for having me on.
It is very important that we keep our finger on the pulse in as far as the developments around the G20. Perhaps if you can just set that context for us. Why should we care? Because I've been hearing a lot of our listeners say we're not benefiting anything. This is just happening for the politicians to go to those fancy meetings. It means nothing for us. But what is the true impact of a meeting such as this nature, and of course South Africa being the host?
Cathy, I'm afraid your listeners are very, very wrong in that regard. This is the premier, if not one of the premier global forums for 20 of the world's largest economies. Now, you must remember the Group of 20 is an intergovernmental forum, and it's 19 countries and 2 continental unions, which is the African Union and the European Union. Now, G20 countries account for more than 85% of global economic output globally, around 75% of global exports, and we're about 80% of the world's largest populations. And of this entire grouping, the larger emerging markets like South Africa, Brazil, and India, we make up relatively the largest share of the world's economy. It's a forum, Cathy, to discuss the major issues that are happening in the world, that we discuss the global economy, we discuss international politics, we discuss financial stability, trade, climate change mitigation, and sustainability sustainable development. And what they're trying to do within the G20 meetings is they not only discuss economic and financial matters, but we also discuss and coordinate on policy matters and issues that are of mutual interest that are pressing on the broader global political agenda as well. So a lot of what we've seen so far that has happened is we had a large contingent of the foreign ministers that were here about almost 3 weeks ago now, that came to South Africa, and we had a lot of side door conversations and bilateral meetings from countries that are able to discuss issues that are concerning their regions, their direct bilateral relations, or a particular pressing matter that may require additional negotiation that's transpiring at the United Nations. So it's a very, very important consultative meeting or a forum, because we discuss all of the world's broader issues, and we are also then going to take a lot of these recommendations and points that are discussed, and they will then go to the United Nations for more formative decision making.
The geopolitical environment has thrown somewhat of a spanner in the works for the G20. South Africa hosting, America is supposed to be taking over from South Africa's presidency of the G20. And yet, so far, we have seen a snubbing of the events held in South Africa. How much of a concern is that? The relationship not only between South Africa and the US, the extent to which it has been strained, but also the impact of the Donald Trump presidency on the machinery of the G20 overall. How effective are the conversations taking place there if the US is not present?
Chrissy, that's such a good question. So essentially what happens in G20 is the United States, South Africa, and Brazil are forming what we call the Troika, which are the three countries, the one that just hosted, the one that is currently hosting, and the one that is next to be hosting the meeting. So Brazil held the G20 last year in 2024. We're hosting 2025, and we are supposed to hand over to the United States in November, beginning December this year. I think President Cyril Ramaphosa has really articulated it quite well, and I think a lot of the finance ministers and central bank governors have essentially very politically correctly stated essentially that the show must go on. South Africa has had its agenda laid down. We have had a theme that we agreed on prior to Brazil's hosting. Our theme for this year is solidarity, equality, and sustainability. And we've set our key priorities and our high-level deliverables that we want to see at the outcome of it. But obviously, we are very well cognizant of the political crisis, I would like to believe, that is transpiring in the continental United States, and what that is inferring not only just within their participation within the G20, but in broader multilateral forums, specifically the United Nations, and their primary interface with the global community as the United States, which is their developmental aid programs that have been, by and largely, I believe it's 85% globally, has been suspended. I think aside from what's happening within the continental United States and how that's vacillating and being projected outwardly, is really what's happening with multilateralism internationally, which is we are seeing the sustained emergence and protracted crises that are going on throughout the world politically and also militarily. So in Africa specifically, we'll go right next door to the DRC and also in Sudan. We've also got the ongoing war in Gaza. We've got emerging trade tensions going on between the US and China. We've got the situation in Ukraine. So there's a lot of very hot and very highly charged political episodes that are transpiring, and there's also very serious challenges within the United Nations system as well. The United Nations is turning 80 this year, and I think the past 5 to 10 years, we've really seen what was once a murmur coming out of the Global South in wanting to see realized reformations transpire at the United Nations that are now just, a very loud and audible shouting that's coming out of the Global South. And also, I think a lot of the structures within the United Nations are no longer sustainable within the manner within which they currently exist, by virtue of the fact that, as you can imagine, Cathy, at 80 years old, when the institution was being engineered, the challenges that the world faced then and where we are currently, it is no longer one and the same. So one of the major issues that is a huge bone of contention is the reformations within the United Nations Security Council, which at current is only 5 of the world's largest victors of World War II.
All right.
Most African countries were not liberated states at that moment in time. So we are not present in there, and there is a big demand for change to have more seats at the table for the Global South, for countries, let me say, India, Russia, China, India, South Africa, and Brazil, to have a bigger seat at the table of decision-making power.
The voice of Lerato Tsebe is one you will hear every Wednesday on the G20 series at 11:30 right here on The Talking Point. That's where we leave it for today. Thank you, Lerato. We're back with you tomorrow between 9 and midday.
Unlock a world of benefits. Welcome to SABC's TV License Rewards program. Ready to make your viewing experience more rewarding? Say hello to perks that go beyond just watching TV. Join us today at sabctvlicenserewards.co.za and instantly receive your first reward. But wait, there's more. You can get up to 500 Rand back. Become part of something bigger, a movement where watching TV isn't just a hobby. It's a catalyst for positive change. Register now at sabctvlicenserewards.co.za and open the door to a world of benefits. Plus, every time you tune in, you're making a difference. T's and C's apply. Remember, TV license fees aren't just payments. They make a difference. Copperbelt ladies and Durban ladies both want to collect maximum points in the early days of the season. Who will dominate this 90 minutes? Limpopo or KZN? This is the Hollywood Best Super League. Catch Mzansi Queens of the beautiful game. Copperbelt ladies versus Durban ladies on Saturday, 15 March at 11:30 a.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
The book reading. Please note that the views expressed in this book are not that of the station. Listeners' discretion is advised. SFM presents another episode of the book The Thing with Zola by Zibu Sitole, read by Lerato Mvelase.
You know she only got the gig because of her mother. The Minister of Miscommunication herself is friends with the Minister of Tourism, right? Khanyisa whispered bitterly. That's why she does the whole sisterhood thing and gets super friendly from time to time. She's easing her guilt. Khanyisa pursed her lips. I didn't know that, Zola said carefully. She didn't want to add to this conversation. And that was, of course, how most things worked. Even with her limited experience of the job market, she knew it wasn't what you knew, but who you knew. Well, Zola, now you know. Oguhle is not your friend. She's your boss. She's just tolerating you for the numbers. And sooner or later, she'll have you giving press snippets about how she pulled you from the dark abyss of poverty by giving you a chance to be mentored by her. Khanyisa raised her eyebrows. During her research on her would-be boss, Zola had read the articles where an intern, maybe Khanyisa herself, had said something similar about Oguhle, and Zola had been floored by her future boss's graciousness. One thing was for sure, though. Oguhle definitely wasn't her friend, and Zola would be sure to remember it. Zola worked diligently through her lunch break, and before she knew it, it was 5 o'clock and the office was almost empty. She looked up and saw her last 3 colleagues leave, and then it was just her and Oguhle.